Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Burn the Rulebook podcast. This is the podcast where we break down everything you were never taught about menopause, mental health, and relationships one truth at a time. I'm Rachel Boyle, a licensed couples therapist, sex therapist, and certified menopause specialist. This podcast helps you understand what is actually happening to your body, mind, and relationships, and gives you real tools to move through life with clarity, calm, and connection. Let's get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Burn the Rulebook podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about perimenopause and relationship communication and why emotional changes during perimenopause can trigger conflict and then how to fix it. So, as you guys know, perimenopause can profoundly affect relationship communication, which can often lead to misunderstandings, emotional distancing, and recurring conflict patterns. And in this episode, we're going to explore why perimenopause triggers those miscommunications and how the emotional changes that come along with perimenopause affects the way that couples can talk, and then what you can do to repair that connection with your partner. So if you have noticed more conflict, irritation, withdrawal, or miscommunication in your relationship during menopause or perimenopause, then this episode is really going to help you understand why it's happening and also what to do about it. I'm going to break down how hormonal shifts impact emotional regulation, stress tolerance, and reactivity, and how that can create challenges in long-term relationships and marriages. You're also going to learn how midlife transitions intensify old patterns and why your relationship may suddenly feel fragile, distant, or even tense. We're going to talk about the ways that couples get into predictable patterns of conflict and how they can get stuck in these patterns and how to shift towards a healthier, more connected communication. You're going to walk away with practical relational tools for breaking these cycles of defensiveness, withdrawal, irritability, and misinterpretation, and replace them with repair, kind, direct requests, and emotionally honest connection. If you've been more irritable, more sensitive, quicker to withdraw, or if every conversation seems to turn into a misunderstanding lately, I want you to know that this is not a character flaw, and it is also not evidence that your relationship is falling apart. Your brain and body are going through a major shift due to perimenopause. And there is some good news. You can absolutely navigate this stage of your life with more clarity, compassion, and connection once you understand what's happening beneath the surface. So let's talk about why communication changes during perimenopause, how old relational patterns can contribute to your conflict cycle, and what you can do today to reconnect. So just a review of the basics. Remember, when you start into perimenopause, it's not just hot flashes or night sweats. It affects your brain, it affects your stress tolerance, and your emotional bandwidth. So first of all, your emotional regulation shifts as your estrogen and progesterone are fluctuating wildly and chaotically. The parts of your brain that are responsible for emotional steadiness become less buffered. So what this means is that you have a much lower window of tolerance than you normally have. So this means you could get overwhelmed faster. You could have a shorter fuse. Things might feel more intense than they normally do. You might lose your filter whenever you start to feel stressed and say things that you wouldn't normally say. And so what I want you to know is that it doesn't mean that there is something wrong with you. It means that your brain is literally changing and adapting. And when that happens, you have less emotional resources. Also, when you're in perimenopause, your cognitive and sensory load increases due to poor sleep, anxiety spikes, overstimulation, and chronic fatigue. This all reduces your ability to stay in regulated conversation. So when your window of tolerance shrinks, communication becomes more reactive instead of relational. Also, old patterns can really resurface or even become worse. Because you're in this transitional period of perimenopause, which remember is puberty in reverse, anything that you've been holding, minimizing, or waiting until later to address in your relationship, it's all coming up now because you no longer have the tolerance to just hold it in anymore. Sometimes your partner may not know what's happening if you guys haven't communicated about this before. And what they see are the mood changes, the communication changes, and they may think that you're mad at them or that, you don't like him anymore or her, or that you're overwhelmed. And all of that just means that you're going through this change. You're not dysfunctional, but there is change happening with your body and your brain and your emotions. So this is a relational issue because it affects the entire relationship. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the pattern that you have with your partner. So every couple has a pattern that they do. I like to use informational from relational life therapy. So that's described as the stance. So what that means is one person has a pattern, that's their stance, and then their partner has another pattern, which is their stance. And when those two stances coincide, there's a dance that happens between two partners. So all relationships have these cycles, but what happens in perimenopause is that these cycles become accelerated because your threshold is lower and your emotional system is more reactive. So I just want you to remember, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with you. It's just the pattern becomes exacerbated. So the pattern was there before the perimenopause, and now it's like on fire. So there are things that people do when they're stuck in their stance part of the relationship. So I'm using the 5 losing strategies. This is also from relational life therapy. So the first one is being right. So being right means that you think that your way is the right way and better than what your partner's way is. And while this can feel good in the short term, it kills the connection in the relationship. Now, your partner might have the stance of being right. So then you know what it feels like when somebody's coming at you with, I'm right and I know better than you do. Rather than attending to, hey, let's conquer this problem together, or attending to the emotional attunement that might happen in the relationship. So an example that I like to use a lot is when two people are in a car together and one person is driving, their partner might be like, hey, you're driving too fast. And the partner that's driving is like, okay, but I'm only going 5 miles over the speed limit and I'm a really good driver. Okay, the issue really isn't whether or not somebody is a good driver, because that's a really hard thing to quantify. It really is, do I want my partner to feel safe with me while I'm riding in the car? So I can hear that my partner is having fear or concern about something. So I address that emotional issue rather than get into an argument about whether or not I'm a good driver. Okay, the next losing strategy is controlling your partner. So controlling your partner can be wanting anything simple from like wanting them to do things the way that you want to do them, all the way up to like really intense controlling, which is, controlling what they wear or who they talk to or where they're going out, who they're hanging out with. So though that would be an abusive relationship, but for most of us, trying to control your partner might be like, I want to control when you're going to talk to me, right? Or how you're going to talk to me, because your emotional capacity is low, but that can be read as micromanaging to your partner. It doesn't mean that you can't ask for how you'd prefer to be talked to, but we don't have control over how another person is actually going to engage with us. They make that decision. Now, we hope in relationship that they hear our request and that they accept it, but our partners can't do that all the time. It's just not humanly possible. And the next one is unbridled self-expression. Unbridled self-expression is I'm going to say what I want to say when I want to say it without stopping to think of what that impact is going to be on you. So everything comes out all at once. You might be doing this with your partner, or you might have your partner doing it to you and you just can no longer tolerate it anymore. Bridled self-expression, not good for a relationship. Okay, number 4 is retaliation. Retaliation can be like passive aggressive comments. It can be sarcasm. It could be withdrawal, cold shoulder. It can be keeping score. All that is retaliatory. And that's not going to be healthy for a relationship either, because it puts space in between two people rather than resolving the problem. The 5th losing strategy is withdrawal. I'm going to shut down. I'm going to go away. I'm not going to talk to my partner. And the reason that that's not good in relationship is because it can make your partner feel rejected, and also because you're not addressing the issue. And sometimes in perimenopause, women can do that because they're just completely overwhelmed, that they don't have the emotional bandwidth to engage in a conversation at that moment. And so there's ways to explain to your partner that that's what's going on versus just pulling away. Now, if you're on the opposite end of this and your partner is doing that, and they're pulling away, then you know that that doesn't feel great. And also, if they're pulling away while you're trying to communicate what's happening to you in perimenopause, That's not going to be helpful either. Okay, so how to fix it? The first step is naming the cycle. So if you can name, am I the pursuer or am I the withdrawer? On my worst day in this current relationship, where am I landing? Okay, I don't want you to think about any previous relationships that you've been in because you want to just look at the pattern in your current relationship. Look at that and see where you're at in the relationship. And then look at where your partner's at in the relationship. Once you're able to identify where each of you are, then the pattern itself will emerge. So when you can name the cycle, when conflict comes up, you can say, hey, I notice we're in our cycle again. I notice I'm blank, whatever that is. I'm overwhelmed, right? I'm overstimulated. I'm slipping into my stance. Can we take a pause? Can we take a break so that we're not saying and doing things that are hurting each other or that are causing a huge amount of space in the relationship that's just not good? When you do that, you're owning your part of it and you're shifting the blame from you and your partner to the dynamic, right? And then that puts you and your partner together as detectives, as problem solvers to the problem with the dynamic, not with each other. The next thing that you can do is lead with vulnerability. Underneath whatever stance you take, there's always the truth of what's going on with you. And this can be the tricky bit because we fall into these old patterns super easy. So a lot of times we don't recognize we're in it. So recognizing it, naming it, and then stating it like, hey, I'm feeling really overstimulated, and I'm worried that I don't know how to ask for help. When you own it, it brings an energy that your partner can come towards you and not away. Now, there's no guarantee that your partner is going to come towards you, but it creates an invitation, a much easier space for them to come towards you. It's up to them whether or not they step into that space of coming towards you. Finally, have a solution, right? Hey, I need some space. Let me take a 20-minute walk so that I can get myself in a healthy, regulated space so we can talk about this. Or, hey, can you please check in with me before bringing up a task so that I can be present while you're talking to me, right? So it's really important to have kind, direct communication. So it's not just about being direct, it's about being kindness and the directness because we can beat our partners over the head with honesty, right? And that's not kind. That's not going to create an inviting space for your partner to come towards you. And that's what we want is a space where each person wants to come towards each other and reconcile. The fourth one is to regulate before you communicate, right? So if I'm not regulated, whatever comes out of my mouth is not going to be regulated. It's going to be one of those 5 losing strategies, right? I'm going to be talking too much, right? Unbridled self-expression. I'm going to try to be right. I might retaliate. There's all kinds of things that happen when we're not regulated. So if you are dysregulated, you need to take a break, tap out like, hey, I'm dysregulated. I'm going to go take care of myself so I don't, create more dysfunction in this conversation. Or maybe say, so I don't hurt you, right? I mean, dysfunction's like therapy lingo. I'm going to take a break so that I don't say something that's going to hurt you or me. Go for a walk, maybe splash some cold water on your face, maybe do some box breathing, some breathing exercises. And remember that you guys are on the same team and that you guys actually really love each other. So you want to be in a calm, grounded space before you come back into this conversation. Finally, you want to repair after conflict. That's so important. And this is one of the things that most couples don't know how to do is how do we repair after conflict? When you repair after conflict, it's important that you own your part. I yelled. I'm really sorry that I yelled. I overreacted. You don't want to go into blaming your partner as to why you yelled when you're repairing. When you're repairing, you're only owning your stuff. Sorry, I yelled. I was overstimulated. And the story I made up about that was X, Y, and Z. The story I made up was that you didn't love me or that you don't hear me or that I don't matter, whatever the story was. And here's a solution, right? Hey, let's sit down on the couch together and let's hold hands. Hey, let's set a time maybe tomorrow to come back and discuss this, but bring a solution to the table whenever you're creating a repair. Okay. So finally, please remember that perimenopause it's a massive transition. It intensifies your emotions. It stresses your communication patterns and asks you to renegotiate the way that that you relate to both yourself and your partner. So even though this restructuring that happens in your brain, it can be really miserable at times, but it also gives you an opportunity to become a better human, to own your truth, right? To work on yourself and your relationship so that you and your relationship are better and stronger. It first starts with the awareness of what's my stance, what is my partner's stance, and what's the dance that we do when we get into conflict. Looking at the 5 losing strategies, look at them, really take them in, memorize them, and have it in your brain. I am not going to do these behaviors anymore because those losing strategies create disconnection in relationship. And then remember to repair. That's super important. We all mess up as humans. Repair is really, really important. That can completely change the landscape of your relationship. So just remember that you deserve support, you deserve clarity, and relationships that grow with you, not in spite of you. So thank you for listening today to Burn the Rulebook podcast. If this episode spoke to you, send it to a friend, share it with your partner, leave a review, leave a question, let me know if there's a topic that you want me to talk about, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for spending time with me today. I hope you found something helpful, validating, or just a little more human in our conversation. Remember, while I'm a licensed therapist, I'm not your therapist, and I'm not a medical doctor. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute medical or mental health advice. For personalized care, please consult with a licensed healthcare provider or mental health professional trained in the area you're seeking support. You deserve expert guidance that's tailored just for you.